budget deliberations. Again, want to thank everyone that's watching virtually tonight and that's watched thus far, and especially those who've provided some feedback throughout the process. We saw some great engagement on the online forums through Let's Talk CK and deputations in previous nights, and that's very meaningful contribution, and I know that all members of this committee appreciate that. We've had significant amount of discussion and debate so far, and tonight we're going to continue with that process. And I again urge everyone to ensure that the decisions we make through this process don't saddle the next council with undue challenge, that we think about both the short-term needs and the long-term future of our community. With that, we'll begin shortly. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? None at the moment. Before we get into motions, we did receive a question regarding assessment and how that might affect taxation. And I know I can probably speak for most here that we get that question quite often regarding what will happen when the new very high price of homes impacts reassessment through impact, and what tax impact that will have. And I know there's some people with some serious concern about that. So there is a short video we'll play that discusses how assessment and taxation works, and what will happen with that reassessment. So we'll show that now.
Much your home is worth. Imagine there's a municipality that only has 3 homes, and they're each worth a different amount. The total cost to provide all of their municipal services is $1,000. This is collected through property taxes. Each homeowner pays property taxes based on how much their home is worth. So, the value of all the homes are added up and divided by the municipality's cost, which gives us the tax rate. This tax rate is applied to all the houses to get enough money to pay for all of the services. So, each homeowner pays according to how much their house is worth. Every 4 years, the houses are reassessed. Let's say all 3 properties have gone up equally in value. If we go back to our calculation, the total cost of services hasn't changed, but the total property value has increased. When this happens, there will be a decrease in the tax rate. Now, when we apply that new rate on all the homes, everyone still pays the same. 1. Property taxes are based on what a home is worth. If reassessments all increase equally, then everyone pays the same taxes as before. Now, let's say another 4 years has gone by, and these homes are reassessed. During this time, the house on the right became more valuable in the market than the other 2. Okay, so, time for a little more math. The total value of all the homes have increased, which means the municipality has to calculate a new tax rate. With this new tax rate, the first 2 homes will actually pay less than the home on the right that was reassessed at a higher value. Since the cost of services hasn't changed, the municipality doesn't need to collect more property taxes. However, since property taxes are based on a home's value, those taxes could potentially go up or down based on the rest of the homes. So, what happens when the cost to provide services goes up? Well, it means more property taxes need to be collected from every home, and a new tax rate is calculated. To get the new rate, we take that amount that the municipality now needs and divide it by all of the property values. The new rate is applied to all the homes, and now everyone has to pay the new tax amount to continue to fund all of the services. So, let's review. 1. Property taxes are based on the value of a home. When homes are reassessed equally, each homeowner will pay the same amount proportionately as before. 2. When homes are reassessed at different values, each homeowner will pay a different amount proportionately based on how much their home increased in value. 3. When the municipality's cost to provide services increases, a property tax increase, then everyone pays their share proportionately across the board. And that explains the relationship between property value and property taxes.
Thank you. And that video is available online as well. If individuals do require some clarification, it can be helpful in answering that question about the impact of reassessment. As we know, particularly the price of housing has increased significantly in our community. We haven't seen a reassessment cycle yet. That's been put off, and there are some concerns with how that affects what people pay. And I think that video does a really good job explaining it. So with that, we'll move into some general motions. Mayor Caniff, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I've got a motion to put forward. I believe I've provided it. I hope that it's already out there. Has two parts to it. One, motion to cut tab 3, line 6, inflation by $95,657. And part 2 of it is motion to increase tab 5, line 90 by $130,000. The effect of that is to cut total of $225,657 from the required revenues, or sorry, from the cut taxes by that amount, which puts the new rate down to 2.79%. And so I put that, if I can get a seconder for that, I can explain it.
Seconded by Councillor Finn.
Yes, so I looked at a couple other lines. I did work with Gord on this one. Said looking for a couple of things. I checked with him first, and I'll defer over to Gord after on this. But the magic on the 95,657 is that's what we're contributing net to capital this year. That moves it to zero. So it's all provincial money going. We were contributing a mere 95,000 to infrastructure. Put that to zero. The second part increases the interest revenue as we're moving up. I challenged Gord on the amount that we put in there. We put 400,000 in permanently in the budget. As we see interest rates going up, that's why Gord put 400,000 in, and he put 600 in as an amount not permanent to the budget, but we've done that last year as well. The anticipation is that rates are going up, and that we would have a good opportunity to earn an additional $130,000 there. So that's my justification, Mr. Chair. And if I could defer over to Gord as well to walk through his thoughts on this.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Gord, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer. So I did have discussions with the mayor today with these motions, but I do want to be perfectly clear. Going back a little bit where we started from at EMT back in November, we were actually facing over a 6.5% budget increase at that time. It was in late November and publicly announced in December that the province came through with the $4.6 million of OCIF funding, which really enabled us to drop the needs down to the 4.74% draft that we came with. The first part of the motion on infrastructure is about saying that council wants to put absolutely nothing towards infrastructure this year. Not a dollar for inflation, which has been ran about 8% last year and 5.3% on average over your term. And this is saying that you feel that nothing needs to be contributed to infrastructure. So I have to say that. Take it for what it is, but I don't think the province, when they and by the way, I have a lot of problems with the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and on why it has a cap. I really think that we deserve in Chatham-Kent at least $18 million, perhaps $18 to $20 million, a larger share than Essex County with all our bridges and infrastructure we have to look after. but it is capped at 10 million, and the cap was raised. We're getting every dollar that we can get, and we appreciate that we're actually getting $4.6 million more. But this is council pushing down their responsibilities to the next council on infrastructure. As for the interest income, just to explain that a little more, Mayor did a good job of explaining it, but what has triggered it now? And as you know, we took to council an investment policy a few years ago where administration is being much more aggressive with a portion of our reserves. Where we do have one of the best banking deals across the province with municipalities in our Chatham-Kent Lambton Administrators Group, CCLAG for short, funding agreement where all the hospitals, school boards, and municipalities in Chatham-Kent and Lambton counties all joined together into a pooled banking system where we have generated millions of dollars of savings since that was formed. For all millions of savings for all the organizations, including Chatham-Kent, but we've even gone further than that and been much more aggressive on investing a share of our reserves at a higher level risk. So why now are we coming forward with this? Well, just yesterday we just closed one of our deal, one of our notes. We received a recommendation to pull the trigger and lock in the savings, and with that being locked in based on outstanding performance over the last few months on those accounts, I feel comfortable that we can achieve this 130,000 additional one-time money for 2022. It's just that there's so much unknown that I'm not recommending it go to base, but I am comfortable with the 130,000. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Gord. Questions related to this motion, Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Budget Chair. The one question that I have is, are these two items, item number 6 and item 90, inherently tied together, or can we vote on them separately as a budget committee?
We could separate them and vote on them individually.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll take discussion around both while we have some time for them to separate those. Do we have any other questions or comments on these items? Go ahead, Don.
Thank you, Budget Chair. After last night's deliberation, it was clear everybody was struggling to try and, find a way to squeeze more money out and reduce the burden to the taxpayer. So the management team met this morning. We looked at everything. I just want to say one other comment about the reduction in infrastructure. We recognize the other place that people might be tempted to go is to say, what about the cost of the staff? And it was actually Thomas that said, you might be surprised to hear this, but I think you should get rid of the infrastructure funding. And the reason for that is if we lose our staff, we have no way to actually do the infrastructure work that's required. So we'd rather take this sort of a hit and still maintain a workforce which is experienced and dedicated and has shown a lot of capacity to continue to provide, very high quality services to the citizens of Chatham-Kent without their ability to do that. Or if we start losing people because of we can't compete in the marketplace, that becomes a real problem. So everybody lined up on that, but that was, I think when Thomas said that, I think all of us stepped back and had a really hard look and said, there's something we really have to consider. So just want to make sure that you understood this is not something that Thomas has thought about lightly, but that's how important this is for us to maintain a competent staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Any other questions or comments from members of committee? Seeing none, we will vote on them separately. Mayor Caniff, did you have any remarks before we vote on those?
Yeah, I just want to add that, we're digging deep here. I know each council member is looking for a particular number, and this is really driving to help get those two. And I think these are reasonable cuts that are not going to be impacting significantly anything moving forward. So I hope everybody supports these. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. And with that, I will call the vote on the item that we see on the screen.
Just waiting for one more counselor, please.
Judy, it's Councillor Latimer. I do not have a voting screen.
Okay, so how would you like to vote on this particular one? Yes or no?
No.
No? Okay, so all votes are in and motion passes 11-7.
And now we'll move to the second item. Councillor Oche, did you have a question on this item? Is that what your hand's up for? Oh, I see it pop down. Any question? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Oche.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. No, but I would like to bring up something after this vote, please. Thank you.
Any other questions related to this tab item? Or sorry, to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote.
All votes are in, motion passes 17-1.
Thank you. I did have an email from Councillor Kirkwood White regarding, I don't believe it was a motion, but some clarification around an item that we went through the other night, I believe the CKHA item. Councillor Kirkwood White, did you have a question about that?
I don't have a question. I have a couple of comments. Council has been approached today from at least one constituent wondering why we did not pull the item for the approval of the residential withdrawal management program. I'm not sure what's happened to my camera. Sorry about that. I'll worry about it later. It looks like it's looking in the opposite direction from what I'm doing here. I'll fix it later. In any event, I wanted to say that I made a presentation to Municipal Council in 2009 as a representative of the Chatham-Kent Drug Awareness Council. At that point, we talked about prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and enforcement. And I can tell you that the social service sector here in Chatham-Kent has been advocating for a withdrawal management program here in Chatham-Kent for well over 15 years. In fact, the Board of Health passed a unanimous motion at its last meeting to support this endeavor. And I just wanted to be absolutely clear about the fact that this is a need in our community. We've heard Dr. Reedite speak to it on several occasions. And I did want to say that it's extremely important, given some of the other opportunities that this municipal council has shared in terms of its revenue with other organizations. In fact, we have provided $5 million to CKHA when the Chatham site was underway in 2001. We've contributed 1.5 million to the hospice, and we've contributed 1 million to the YMCA. So $500,000 to help save lives is a small amount. And in fact, I truly believe that over the long run, we will save on hospital costs and policing services and EMS services. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments in support of that endeavor. And if I can figure out how to get my chair out of my face there. There it is.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Kirkwood-White, and appreciate you highlighting that item. I know that things work a little differently through the budget process. So sometimes when an item's unanimously supported like that, and we don't need to make a motion about it, it may seem like it just passes by if people are watching. So appreciate you pointing that out. Councillor Oche, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was going to speak on the same topic. Could we have someone explain where the money's coming from? Because it isn't actually coming from the budget, base budget, so it's not going to be extra money. So there's no tax savings by voting this down. So if somebody could do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Like me to take that budget, Chair?
Thank you, Dr. Edike.
Thanks, no problem. Thanks for the question. We have thought long and hard about this. And as we've indicated they've put it up on the screen in front of us. We also presented to the Board of Health, in which the Board of Health provided council with a letter of unanimous support in terms of this withdrawal management program. So the funds for this, we are recommending that $250,000 come out of our Community Human Services Health Reserve, and the other $250,000 come out of our ESS Corporate Initiatives Reserve. I would also add to Councillor Kirkwood-White's comments that, not only really does the drug crisis that we're facing in our community impact our EMS team, our fire team, our police team, it also impacts all of our social services teams, including public health and employment and social services. And I can't impress enough about the need for a withdrawal management program for our community. This certainly in terms of coming out of reserves, it's a one-time ask. And I really do hope that council continues to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, April. Just one last question, and it would be to April as well, through you, Mr. Chair. If we were to try to run this ourselves, it would be much more than the $500,000 that we're taking out of reserves, would it not?
Oh, by far. We also don't have the skills internally to run this type of program. So we would need to be hiring some really skilled individuals and bring them on as staff to be able to run this type of program. A residential withdrawal management program really requires some highly skilled folks in a really very specific setting. So it would cost significantly more dollars for us to bring this type of program in-house, for sure.
Thank you very much, April, and thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Oche. Councillor Solomon, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was on the same issue, and comment was on the same. I've got a question and a comment. The comment is, frankly, I don't believe it's the municipality's responsibility to do this. It is the responsibility of the province to provide health care. That having been said, I mean, I'm disappointed that the province isn't covering this 100%, is what I'm trying to say. But it does not affect the current tax percent increase, which I'm glad someone cleared that up. Now, here's my question. Today, there's an announcement of the Blue Water Health group in Sarnia that they have the MPP in that area, Bob Bailey, announced a grant in excess of $12 million, which is additive to a $200,000 program that they already announced for Blue Water. Can you tell me, put that in perspective for the Chatham-Kent Health Alliance? Where's our 12 million? To put it very simply.
Yeah, so thank you, Budget Chair. Councillor Sullivan, I'm not aware of this announcement, so certainly I can't answer that today. I'm Blue Water is not in our area, and so I don't know how to answer that question for you. We can certainly take that back and look and see if we can get some information as to what this funding's for and why Blue Water has received this funding. I apologize. I can't answer that for you tonight.
Okay. Well, I can help you a bit. It's if you went to the Chatham Daily News online and scroll down, you'll get the Sarnia paper, which is it's from the same publisher, and the announcement is in there, and it is also for this kind of service. So I'm a little puzzled as to why I get it that their MP announced it, who was a member of the government side of the House. I understand that, but it was in the Chatham Daily News online publication this morning at, when did I see it? 9:30. And it is for, I think it's 10 beds. It's part of the plan. So it's not my area of expertise, but when I see $12 million plus another 200,000, and I say, wait a minute, where's our share? So I think at some point in time, the public would like to know that, and I'm sure there's some answer that we deserve as members of the public. Anyway, that was my comment. But if we don't have that information, I think we should have it at some early point in time presented to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. And the discussion sounded very similar to the OCIF discussion Gord brought up earlier, and where's our share? So I think your comments are well placed. Councillor Harrigan, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually was following Mayor Canis. I was going to change the conversation, so I'm not sure if Councillor Bondi still wanted to talk about the current CKHA grant or not, because I was going to move us in a bit of a different direction.
Yep. Councillor Bondi, was your comments on the CKHA item?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Oh, okay, go ahead with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm kind of, and I really don't like saying echoing, but echoing. I think there's some discontent with taxpayers that I've heard, not much, but a little bit today, that this is a provincial matter. Healthcare is provincial, and as Canadians, sorry, I look like I'm in a cave, but that's as it is a healthcare issue, it is a provincial matter, and Canadians, municipally, provincially, and federally, we're all taxpayers. So I do understand that people are a little upset that we're contributing to effectively a provincial responsibility. We very rarely, if ever, never contribute to the educational system municipally. I don't think we have too many requests from the school boards. So there's that. So I understand that, and I agree with it. So that's one. That's following upon Councillor Solomon's comment. Number two, the idea that it's a reserve, which I tapped into yesterday for $200,000. So admittedly, but typically, if we go into reserves, there's usually a bit of a backlash from administration on, well, we're going to have to push this over to the next fiscal year. I didn't hear a whole lot of that. So I was a little disappointed in that when we do tap into reserves, there usually is some sort of pushback from the CFO on, we're just pushing the problem down the road. Didn't really hear that much. And the other thing I'd like to mention in that this contribution, it passed without being pulled. So I would just like to effectively, like officially register my opposition to these virtual meetings, because like Dolson Road, you know, another $1.4 million to a for-profit housing subsidy development, it passed because it went through consent agenda because we didn't get it. Well, I only speak for myself always, but, you know, honestly, I really speak to, or hope to speak to, administration in that COVID is on, it's real, it's problematic, but the municipality owns a Bradley Center and 10 arenas. We can socially distance, we're vaxxed or we're tested or whatever the mandates are. We really have to get back to live council, live budget. I know I'm veering here and you're going to pull me out of this any second, and that's okay. I get that. That's your job as the chair. But really, I don't think that virtually we're not servicing the public when we're doing it like this. People are distracted. There's dogs in the back. So this is another example of like something happened where it's like the next day people are shaking their head saying, "Oh, well, we didn't pull that out." Now I don't know if that would happen in live council. I think there would be more debate, more engagement. So that's my 2 cents on this virtual stuff. Like, again, we own 10 arenas and a Bradley Center. Let's get back to live council where it's much more effective. And I don't think, well, again, you know, I only speak for myself, but all right, I think you get my point. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Councillor Bondi, and I think I provided you that latitude there. I would say that it's certainly a different experience chairing virtually than it is in person, and has added to some challenge. I will say that the process of pulling items from the budget is unchanged from years past. So whether we're in person or virtual, at any point, a committee member can pull that item. So I'm sure anyone watching last night recalls a couple of very long pauses, maybe multiple really long causes. At any point, any member can pull any item for discussion. So I like to think that we've done a very good job this year of adding space for that and adding time for that, and making sure that if there's any item of interest that a member has, they can bring that forward. So that certainly there's frustrations over virtual versus in person, absolutely. But I just want to make sure that as chair, you know, that my priority was to make sure everyone had that time. And that we've done this process the same way, as far as I know, for 8 years that I've been here.
And Mr. Chair, I do appreciate those comments, and you've done your best and you've done a great job, and everybody's done a great job at it. I just, my point was that I do think that we can go back to live in-person council, in that we do have the facilities that can accommodate social distancing, et cetera. But you've done a good job, and no, there's nothing that's gone awry. It's just, it's not the same, you know, when people are not in person. You're in chamber. How is it? It must be a little dusty in there, but but I look forward to getting back. But thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bondi. With that, we'll go back to Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mr. Budget Chair. I think the conversation that we've had tonight was really good, and probably a different conversation than what we'd have had if we'd have persevered through yesterday. It gave us all some time to rest, shovel our driveways, and then think a little bit more about the budget. And I appreciate how staff did put their heads together, and the mayor was able to bring forward that motion to further reduce the tax burden on our residents. So with that, I would like to move the budget as it currently sits, if I could get a seconder for that.
Seconded by Councillor Kirkwood-White. So we'll get that motion up with the 2.79. And then while we're getting that up, we'll go through any comments we do have on the motion to approve the budget. ending with Councillor Harrigan, of course. Councillor Solomon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question that I've asked, I don't know, if not every time, certainly many times when we get to this point in the budget. The what is the number again? 2.7 something?
2.79.
2.79% tax increase does not mean that we have increased our spending by only 2.79. So I usually ask, what new revenues have we received this year, and what is our true increase in spending? Because obviously this is the tax increase portion, but we also had new revenues in most years. So the increase in spending is far beyond 2.79%. At least that's traditionally been the answer. So Gord, can you address that?
Yeah, so we can definitely, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we can definitely send out a summary of exactly what the total new spending is to council, and we, same as we did last year, we also will post that detail on our website that will show exactly what the total new spending is. But for example, the $4.6 million OCIF money, plus about $300,000 of federal gas tax, plus another $300,000 of Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund money, are examples of where we've received, just those alone are totaling over $5 million of new funding. There is with inflation, there's some new funding, for example, for food cost at Riverview Gardens or whatever, like through our provincial agreements. There are on tab 5 near the beginning, a lot of the credits you'll see in there are all many of them are increases to subsidy for many of our programs. But we can get you the exact, we could send that exact number of where it's at as far as that. But yes, you're exactly right. There is a substantial amount of funding from upper levels increases over last year, particularly in infrastructure.
That wasn't the only increase in revenues that I was thinking of, but also increase in revenues that we get through our other increase in assessment, increase in building permits, those kind of increases that are generated locally.
Yes on assessment, no on building permits, because that's within Bill 124 and is not part of the tax base. But yes, I could add user fees, inflation on whether it's on licenses or recreational services, or just inflationary increases on our user fees and licensing as well.
Well, so let me ask you generally. I mean, you're not going to be able to get me that number before we vote on this budget, but it appears to me, even from the $5 million that you just gave, that our spending increase, which, let me pause for a moment. In the past, I've heard members of council, not many of whom are still there, saying that if you don't have a tax increase of a fair amount, then you're going backwards because you're not spending as much. And I just want the public to understand that, and other councillors who maybe haven't asked this question, that with all the other monies that have come in, our spending, even if it's only $5 million, our spending's increased by my limited calculation in my head over 7%. Is that not generally right if it's $5 million? And you've got the 2.79% tax increase too?
So our, I'd like to talk to the actual numbers, but no, it wouldn't be like taxes are only funded about 49%, 48, 49% of our budget. We actually have a 350, 360, sorry, should know the number, but over $360 million budget. Just inflation alone could amount to $12 to $15 million of increases across the board, right? Like it's but there are increases in funding that are covering some of that inflation in some of our funded areas. Land ambulance, for example, we don't have the funding letter to get it. It doesn't come until the next fiscal year from the province, but they'll give us 3% inflation or 2.5 or 4. I don't know. It's up to them, but they'll give us inflation on our ambulance service. We've put an estimate of what we think we're going to get into this budget. So, but you are correct. Expenditures are going up as a result of inflation. We buy goods and services and infrastructure, and all those costs are going up.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to belabor it. I just want council to understand, and maybe all councilors understand that already. And the public, for those who may be listening or may be reading later in a publication, that this 2.79% does not equate to the year-to-year increase in the amount of money that municipal government is spending. The year-to-year increase is far higher than 2.79%. And although you can't give me the exact numbers now, you'd agree that that's the case. So I'll wait for a report, but what I'd like to know, I think the public should know, is what is the increase in expenditure between 2021 and what we anticipate and approve for 2022. So sometime down the road, you'll get that for us, correct?
We will. We do put out together a one-page summary that will split that out exactly. But basically, what we're really saying is we needed at 2.79%, we needed $4,715,000 to fill the gap between from where our costs went up, subtracting our new funding from other sources, whether it's user fees or upper level funding. We still needed an increase of $4,715,000 of taxes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quinton, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. And I think we had a helpful slide the other night that showed the change in infrastructure spending as an example of that. So while we're putting 0 new tax dollars to infrastructure spending, the year-over-year increase in infrastructure spending is certainly not 0. So there's quite a bit more money that's going towards that item. And I think that's the type of information that Councillor Solomon's talking about as well, that's helpful to see, so we don't confuse the message on we're not spending any additional money in infrastructure. We are spending quite a bit. It's just where that source is.
Exactly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I appreciate the comments. Any other comments on the motion before us? Seeing no other comments, I will call the vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 10-8.
Thank you. And now we will move to the council meeting now that the budget committee meeting is adjourned with that motion. So I will pass the chair to Mayor Caniff.
Thank you, Mr. Budget Chair. In my instructions, it says that the budget chair and mayor switch seats and proceed to meet as a municipal council. So I guess we're officially switching seats now. I'd like to call to order the open session of council. And Councillor, we have the one motion in front of us. Can we put that on the screen, please? I understand we don't need number one, correct?
We didn't receive that from committee, so I assume that that can come out. Is there a need for it to be in finance? Or is that something you'll bring forward to council at a different time?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We can bring that forward to council during our annual reserve cleanup policy.
Perfect, thank you.
So Councillor Harrigan and Councillor Kirkwood Light, I'll go to you to move it and second it.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'll move the motion.
Happy to second.
Okay, any questions? Councillor B. McGregor?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just before we voted on it, I did want to make some remarks and thank committee members for their hard work through the budget process. Also want to thank staff members for their work throughout the year in putting this together and for the hours spent over these last 2 weeks guiding us through the process and helping answer questions offline and online. I do want to recognize, as Councillor Bondi had mentioned, that this is a challenging process to do virtually. So certainly want to especially thank the team in IT for helping a few of us with some technical difficulties and keeping this running smoothly. And of course, do want to thank the individuals who have watched these deliberations, who participated in the open houses, who have sent feedback, and who go through that that process every year and help us through council providing feedback to set our priorities and get this process done. This is our fourth and last time doing this together. It's been a learning experience over the 4 years, and appreciate the at-time patience that it takes to get through this together, and look forward to what the next group of councillors and committee members will do to move our community forward. Thank you.
Gord, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to echo Brock's comments and thank the budget team, Steve Sander, Chris, Haley, and Matt, all the other folks that have helped us along the way, all the general managers, directors, managers, and frontline staff that brought their budget ideas forward, creating efficiencies throughout the year. Creating a budget's a year-long process, and like we always say, it happens every Monday night as well with council. And I just want to thank them all, and also thank you, Mr. Chair Brock McGregor, for leading us through this term of council's budget meetings. You did an excellent job. Thanks.
Yes, I just want to make one comment as well. Just put this in perspective. We had inflation in the budget of 4.4%. So if inflation was zero, we would have a 1.6% tax decrease. So I just want to put that in perspective, that ignoring inflation, that's what we as council did tonight, or over the last period of time. We were able to find savings throughout everything else to reduce that. As well, we added ambulance service. We were spending over 4 million more on capital. We've added to the police force. Those are some things we've added in, and yet cut by 1.6% on everything else. So inflation is again the driver in this budget, and looking forward to seeing inflation come back down. It's so that we can deal with that on as we move forward, deal with a lower number, but as well just so we can see prices of everything going down. So thanks again for everybody and all their contributions. So with that, I'll put it to vote.
Still waiting. There we go. All votes are in. Motion passes 11-7.
With that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Councillor B. McGregor, and seconded by Councillor Kirkwood White. Anyone opposed to adjourning the meeting? Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Stay safe,
Recording
everyone.
stopped.
Good night, everyone.